Entrepreneurship takes a lot of work and dedication, which can be hard without the support of your family and friends.
So in today's episode, we're chatting on how to deal with your friends and family as an entrepreneur.
Are you frustrated by a lack of momentum in your business? Tired of putting in long hours doing what everyone says you should and still not making money? Sounds like you're ready for Lifestyle Builders. We'll help you get back on track, taking action, and seeing results. Head over to joinlifestylebuilders.com today to get started. All right, welcome back to the show. We've got a very important topic today, which I know a lot of people out there have to deal with, but not very many people talk about this.
And it is a big struggle.
It is. It really is. It's hard when people don't understand the path you've chosen, and entrepreneurship is a very different path.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always had side businesses and stuff growing up, but I didn't realize until we went through it how many people just don't even understand what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And the most interesting thing, I think, with all of it is we have 3 businesses and the first 2 are physical.
Mm-hmm.
So like people see the houses that we own. People have been into our store and buy our wine and liquor. And yet we still get people that like, I got this question like 2 weeks ago, like, how do you make money? Like, and I get it with a service business. So
online.
with our consulting business, we're offering services and people can't physically see or touch what we offer. So I kind of get that. But if we're dealing with this as someone that has people that have multiple businesses, some of which are brick and mortar and people can see, I can only imagine how challenging this is for other people that maybe just have a service business or just have an online business that other people can't touch and feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, it's a very lonely place as an entrepreneur and business owner often because you are not necessarily understood by those that are closest to you, and you don't necessarily go outside of your comfort zone to find other people, especially if you're in an area that doesn't have a high population of entrepreneurs or small business owners. So it can get really, really lonely. And then to add on the fact that the people that you're close with don't necessarily understand what you're doing or why makes it even more so.
Well, and I mean, this happens anytime somebody goes to make a change. So if your friends, if you're overweight and all your friends are overweight, and then you decide you're going to become healthy, you're going to experience the same type of thing.
If you're a smoker and all your friends are a smoker, and then all of a sudden you decide to quit, really hard for those people that haven't decided that to understand why you did and, to be supportive of you.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the circle you're in and like the there's always like they say you are, the 5 people you hang around the most. It really is true. People around you are likely very similar. So when you go to make a change, especially something as challenging as starting your own business, becoming an entrepreneur, there is just so much that comes with that most people don't even realize.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about this in the book. So obviously, if this is something you would like to read about, you can pick up a copy and dive in a little deeper in the book itself. But we are going to kind of talk about this today and what are the reasons that you are going to come across or the issues that you're going to come across with your family and friends you step into entrepreneurship.
They're just haters.
Hey, don't skip ahead.
That's what I do. That is my role for this show.
It is seriously.
That's
your role.
That's my role in life.
Yeah, let's change that.
You put a plan together and I just divert off the tracks. So what is the first one, Ariana?
So the first reason that we're going to talk about today is one that might be hard to accept, but it is very legitimate, that they're worried about you. They're concerned. You are choosing something different and you're choosing something that they don't understand. And most of us fear things that we don't necessarily understand.
Yeah. Well, and I've definitely seen this, I think the most with parents because
yes.
I mean, your parents, they often have the best intentions.
And spouses. Don't forget spouses.
And spouses, yes. They often have the best intention, but the way they go about it or their worldview is limited. If they've never been an entrepreneur, you doing this now changes and it scares them. Your spouse might be the same way. and just because they haven't done it doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it's different. And most people, to be honest, most people don't like change.
Yep.
Change is by
Scary.
definition something different than what you've done today. And so people suddenly then start kind of going forward like, well, if they do this, what about this and all about this? And it's so easy to get caught up in our heads, and it's so easy for people around us to get caught up in their heads without realizing what's actually real and what this actually means.
Well, we're often very defensive of our own choices. So when somebody asks you a question and, they're coming from a place of concern, you don't necessarily see the concern. You see the question as something negative because they're questioning your choices. So, and many of us have obviously a lot of history with our parents and the way that we were raised and things like that. So that can play into it a lot with when your parents are asking you things. You're looking at as a place of negativity, like, they just don't know what I'm doing, or they just want to be set in their ways and they want me to be this other thing, and now they can't accept that I've decided something else. And parents are often thinking that you're being impulsive or you're going with the trend or all of this other stuff.
In our last episode, we talked about raising entrepreneurial kids. This is really the other side of it. Now, when those kids grow up and want to become entrepreneurs, one of the big things we talked about was the expectations that parents have.
Mm-hmm.
And, your parents likely have this expectation that you're going to go to college, that you're going to live a good life, get a good job. And so when you start going against expectations, they're naturally going to be concerned.
Well, and I think, let's be honest, a lot of parents are afraid that they're going to have to take care of their kids for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Especially if there's been a track record of, them living at home, or, especially if someone is living at home and wants to start a business, the parents are naturally like, oh, well, great. Well, what I've heard, most businesses fail, blah, blah, blah. This means they're going to be with me forever.
Mm-hmm. So putting it all into perspective, we have to remember these things. And I think there's also this assumed risk thing where people assume that starting a business or becoming an entrepreneur comes with a higher risk than getting a quote unquote traditional job. Now, what we found is that actually isn't true in all the cases, because you literally could go to work tomorrow and your company could go under and they could fire everybody, or they could enter a merger with another larger company who then decides to fire everybody. You could get fired for any number of reasons.
I've legit had people argue this point with me
that a traditional job is more stable.
And then a couple months later or whatever else, one of those events happens and they're suddenly caught without a job. And because they never planned and never set themselves up with options, they were stuck. And they're like, oh, Tom, I get it now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other people that maybe they can work a same job for 40 years.
And there's many that do, and
Absolutely.
That's perfectly fine. But there's also many people that become small business owners and run their business successfully and perfectly fine for many, many years.
Yeah. Well, and the misconception, the myth that exists is that entrepreneurs are all about risk. The reality is entrepreneurs are all about mitigating risk, because like, for example, with a job, even if you have a stable job and you're never going to get fired, there's a risk in that.
Mm-hmm.
And that risk is because of the stability, you're likely also never going to get 100% raise.
Well, and let's talk about life
what?
events too. What happens if you get sick and you have a life-threatening disease? Now your job is something that you can no longer physically do.
Yeah.
So there's the risk that you can't do your job for whatever reason.
Absolutely. Well, so the point I was trying to make, though, there's always an opportunity cost. So even if you have, quote unquote, a stable job, you're most likely only with that stable job only going to get like a 3% raise a year, right? So you don't even have the opportunity to get 100% raise or 1,000% raise. But guess what? As an entrepreneur, you can get 100% raise.
Mm-hmm.
You know how you do that? Because you're in control of your business and growing that. So as entrepreneurs, oftentimes the reason people go to build a business is because they want to mitigate risk. They want to mitigate that risk of their job, and they want to mitigate not being able to do the things they want to do in the future because a job or something else is constraining them. So I would challenge you guys to look at risk in a different way. The biggest, like, when you talk to people later in life, most people are never saying, oh, I wish I didn't take that risk. Most people are on the other side saying, I wish I would have done more. I wish I would have done that thing. So even though something might look risky now, I challenge you to look at it from the other perspective of what happens if you don't try some of these things.
I feel like you totally just took us way down a sidebar, but I'll go with it because it's totally relevant.
That is what I do. I honestly don't know why you're surprised anymore.
I don't know if I'm really surprised as just, I don't know what the term is for it.
So grateful that you have such an amazing husband to share this life with.
That was about where I was going with it. Anywho, the next point is one that's hard to accept, probably even harder than the first.
They're haters.
Just goes back to Tom's statement. Yes, they are jealous. Unfortunately, our species as humans psychologically have jealousy built in, and many of us are unable to overcome those feelings, and we act on them.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. You decided to become an entrepreneur because you had some epiphany. Something happened in your life that basically said, I want something different.
Yep.
And so you're now, I don't even know what analogy I want to use here. Like, what is it? Upending the apple cart? Like, is that one?
Sure.
But you're basically like changing things. And so now everything else changes and people get worried and they start looking at their life and they're like, wow, I can't believe this person is so brave and willing to go out and do this thing.
Mm.
And now they're looking at themselves and they're like, and I'm not. I've got fears or I have insecurities. So instead of being happy, oftentimes the jealousy comes in because you're doing something that they want to do, but they're letting their fears hold them back.
Or they know that you were unhappy with your current path and you took a step to change said path. And that was a big, scary, challenging step. And because they're not willing to do it, like you said, they are feeling their own lack, their own, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, well, people project onto you.
Yeah.
Like one of the critical lessons is when people react in a situation, taking a step back and asking why. Is it you in that situation or is it them? And, a great example of this is that, like I can go and take this book to 3 different people, have them read it and get their opinions. And one person can say 5 stars, this is amazing. Another person can say this is complete garbage. It's not the book, right? The book is the exact same thing, but it's that person, their experiences and their reactions. Mm-hmm. It's the same way when you go to make a change. You might have somebody like us that is super supportive and helping you guys being like, perfect, I love that. How are we going to get there? Let's map it out. And then you could have somebody else that totally tears it down. Well, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. It's really on the person. Our perspective is entrepreneurship is great. It's challenging, but we want to help you live your dreams. Somebody else's perspective is they're doing the thing that I wish I could do, but don't have the courage to. And so because I'm not willing to admit that to myself, I'm just going to tear them down and that's going to make me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, it's not about you.
And there's also the other thing where maybe they couldn't care less that you're an entrepreneur, but the things that entrepreneurship has opened up for you, like freedom, time freedom, money freedom, being able to follow your passion and being successful or being seen as being successful, yep. That is where the jealousy bug comes in for a lot of people. That whole grass is greener on the other. They see what you have and they don't have it. And they don't actually want to be an entrepreneur, but they want all the things that entrepreneurship gives you. Yep. There are going to be a lot of people in your life that unfortunately show this side. And it's really tough when it's people that you are close with, when it's family members, when it's friends, people that you've been friends with for years. There have been people that I grew up with and, obviously some of this could just be life and drifting away, but there's definitely some people who used to be more prevalent in our lives who we no longer talk to, we no longer really have a relationship with. And that can be really unfortunate. Luckily, we have a lot of people who are
what's
supportive.
Been beautiful is we've been able to build so many new relationships, with people that are on similar paths or share similar values. One of the things I've personally found is that oftentimes, like, we're both from small towns.
Yep.
The circle you're with is the people that are around you. Like, especially with us growing up, we didn't have Facebook in high school. We didn't have mobile phones and all this to keep us connected. So the people you were around were the people physically located by you. And as you get older and as you get out into more things, you realize that those people might have just been connected with you because of
coincidence. It was a relationship of
not because you align on values or you have similar aspirations or anything else. And so what I've found is that a lot of the people that we've retained share our values, and a lot of the people that we've brought into our lives also share our values.
Well, and I think this is something that's important to know, where you are and who you already have around you. Some of us are lucky to have many people still that are family or friends and are supportive. If you are somebody who doesn't have a lot of support around you, go out and find it. Because there are so many ways to connect with people now, especially with technology and the internet. You don't have to go through this alone. If you jump into this entrepreneurship journey and all of a sudden you find that family and friends are just not stepping up to be supportive for you, don't sit there in your misery. Go and find people. Find people to support you. Find friends on the internet that are in your industry or that are other entrepreneurs. Go to local events with small business owners. Go out and look for people, because having a support network, life-changing.
Yeah, well, and this is why, I mean, it's why we wrote about this in the book. It's why, we talk about these topics, because, starting a business is tough.
Yep.
And especially when you're getting started, I mean, you're trying to push something. You're trying to do something new that's never been done before. And it takes so much energy to get that ball rolling. And what most people don't realize is that on top of just all the business stuff you got to figure out, now you got to deal with friends and family not getting you. It can make it even more
the mental
complicated.
stuff.
Absolutely. So this is kind of the hidden, dark side of entrepreneurship that a lot of people don't realize. And it was why one entire section of the book was how to make that transition, because there's physical things like, not having a boss anymore, but there's also all these mental things of like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I might lose my best friend, or I didn't realize that my parents are now going to look down on me because I'm taking a different path. And I mean, that stuff can weigh on you. And it's a big reason of why we're so big on community, and with all of our programs and everything we do, we're always making sure that we're bringing like-minded people together, because we need our tribe in order to go through the trials and tribulations that we're going to go through on this journey.
Yeah. And that brings us to our last reason. I feel like I've said this for all of them, but it's a really hard one to accept as well. That your friends and family are going to maybe resent where you decide to spend your time. Now, we all only have 24 hours in a day. If you are somebody who's still working in your 9 to 5 and all of a sudden you decide you're going to start a business, that time has to come out of something. And many of us have a life that we're already living. So, maybe you've got a significant other and you spend a lot of time with them. Maybe you're close with your family. Maybe you have close friends. We all have social time where we're doing things with those people that we like to be around. Well, when you are deciding to start your business and you are having to make sacrifices in order to be able to do that, there are going to be people who really don't understand why all of a sudden your business is seen as more important than doing those social things with your friends.
Yeah, I mean, when we started our first business, every Saturday of mine was booked to renovate properties.
And I had to field the questions at every family event that we went to as, hey, where's Tom? Hey, where's Tom? Because of course we had been attached at the hip since we met in college and graduated college and moved in together. And, we told everyone we were getting married, and we did. So it just became the norm for us to be together and be at all the social events with family and friends. Why not? But when we changed, when our life took a different path and something was different, not everyone really understood it at first. So that was a lot of mental struggle for me, because I was the one who was still at the social events and like showing up and spending time with family and friends and having to answer the questions of like, oh, well, why is Tom never here anymore? And what's Tom doing today? And my response was like, he's working. Oh, and like trying to get people to understand what that meant. He's working to create something better for us, something bigger for us in our future. But it's really hard for people to see that when it hasn't been created yet.
Well, and I mean, let's be honest with, your spouse. I know there were times where you weren't happy with.
Nope. I was very frustrated sometimes because I wanted you to be able to show up. And I didn't want to have to be the one feeling the questions of like, where's Tom? Why isn't Tom here today? This is an important event. Yep. Like that put a lot of stress on me as the spouse.
Well, and this is why, like we always tell people, listen, the first thing you got to do, and it's the reason it's the first section of the book, is you got to get clear on what you want the future to look like. And you got to get clear on that with your spouse. Mm-hmm. Because even though you weren't involved in the businesses early on, it was impacting you.
Yep.
Right? It was impacting you because I was spending nights researching properties. It was impacting you because I was spending weekends working on the properties. And you, even though you weren't involved at all,
it was still impacting
It was still impacting you because I wasn't there and you had to feel those questions.
Well, and there was that resentment of like, oh, why am I the one that has to be, I'm the one doing the social events and spending the quality time with our family and friends, and then I'm not getting the quality time that I want at home with you.
Yeah, well, and this is where it is so critical to get aligned on these things, because otherwise, like we've seen it time and time again with ourselves and with others, where that resentment comes up. And you can imagine this scenario. So the entrepreneur is like doing everything they can to try to get their business going. And the spouse is now starting to feel resentful that the business is taking time away. I now have all this inconvenience on me. And then the spouse starts asking the entrepreneur or asking other things. And you've got these two sides where the entrepreneur is like, look, I'm doing everything I can to try to make this work. The spouse is like, well, now I don't see time with you. It's impacting me. Getting aligned and talking through, how much time are we going to spend on this? What is the time frame? Are there seasons like we've talked about before where, look, the business is starting, I have to spend more time here, versus maybe this is an important time in our life and we're going to
we're having a baby
back on the business, but having those conversations is so critical because, like you said, very easily people cannot understand even, your spouse and people close to you. And that can be a huge challenge. It can lead to a lot of frustration.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked earlier about losing friends because you are taking a different path and doing different things, but you can also lose friends, people who are good friends, because they don't understand why you're choosing to spend your time doing something else. So it's also really important to have these conversations with not only your spouse, but your close family and friends, because we talk about lifestyle building. We talk about building the business in support of the life that you want, so you don't have to sacrifice the time with your loved ones. If you are not having the conversations with them early on about, hey, I'm going to try this thing. I think it could be huge. I think it could really help me create the lifestyle I want for my family, for my kids, but it's going to mean that I get to spend less time with you. If you're open about that with people early on and you make the time in your schedule for quality time, maybe it's not a lot.
That's part of what I was going to say too, as you were talking through this. So much of this is the perception. And I've had people that come to me and be like, well, you're not spending time with your kids. And then I look at them and their time with their kids is like watching TV or being in the same house, but it's not quality time. So a big part of this is really being intentional with your time and your money and maximizing that. I mean, like we do Friday family field trips, right? We're taking a day to spend time with our kids. Now that might mean other times we're working on the business and not there with them, but we're being intentional and we're spending quality time.
Yep. And it's the same with our family. They obviously now 3 businesses in, they understand a little bit better when we say.
But even still now, there's times where they're like, well, you guys just work at home all day, so you're available at all times. Oh, that's
the biggest
right?
one. That's totally the biggest one. I know everyone listening has probably had this happen when you work from home and you run your own business. And your friends and family think that you are just free all the time to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You could just, hey, come step out for lunch or meet me here. We're going to go shopping or we're going to do this. We're going to do that.
And
you're
listen,
free, right?
We have flexibility. We have a lot more now than we did a year ago and, all of that.
10 years ago.
But, if you're running a business, there still are responsibilities you have to do. And that's the thing a lot of people don't realize because it's a little more blended these days, but you're at work when you're at work and you're at home when you're at home. And most people don't realize that when you work from home, you still have to have a schedule and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's a funny one. And we hear that all the time. Like, oh, my family just stops in on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. and thinks I can just chat for an hour.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're then usually the first one, like if they need help moving or if something else comes up, they're like, well, everyone else is at work, but I can call her right now.
Yep. All right. So obviously we talked about some of these big reasons. We talked a little bit about what you can do in those situations, but really what it comes down to when you are kind of going through this transition, some of the best things you can do are, number one, explain why you are doing this. Give them the reasons behind your choices. And while they may not understand it at first, as you start to get into this, as you keep having those conversations with them, eventually most people will be able to get a basic understanding of why and why it's important to you.
Well, I was going to say, and the big thing I'd encourage you here, and this is going to take a little bit from you, but allow them to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
get defensive.
A lot of people just don't understand. So when people start doing this with me, I'm just like, hey, what do you want to know? Like I'm an open book, and a lot of times it's through that questioning that it will increase their understanding and oftentimes then increase their respect. And usually after we have a conversation, people are like, well, how can I do that? And guess what? This is one of the things we help people do,
And also, number two, ask for support. Say, hey, I know you maybe don't understand what I'm doing. Maybe you don't understand why I'm doing it yet. I don't need you to, but I need you to support me in this.
Yeah. And
as simple as that.
Well, in some cases, even you can ask, you may not get it. And that's where it's important to seek support from people that understand and will support you. Yes, if your family can support you, great. But I mean, there are going to be people in times where you're just not going to have that support there. Look for it in other places.
And the hardest one is if the support's not there and you continue to feel negatively impacted by those people and their relationships, you've got to be ready to walk away. That's a really, really hard one. And I know, especially when it's people that you feel extremely close to or it's direct, immediate family members. But if time after time, month after month, year after year, you're having these open, honest conversations, you've explained why, you've asked for support, and you're still not getting it, you may have to cut ties and walk away from that person because you cannot continue to run your business with all of the negativity and, people pulling you down at every turn.
Well, and that's the question you have to ask, is, and you ask this across the board, is this thing helping to move me forward or is this thing holding me back? And that could be with physical items. That can be with a habit you have. And that can definitely be with people in your life. There's a lot of people that help move us forward, even though they have nothing to do with business. Right. And there's people that have, tried to hold us back or, everything seems like a struggle or a fight. And it gets to a point where you have to ask, like, is this serving me? And if it's not, being okay with letting it go. And it's just like with, relationships, sometimes letting those things go later on, you can rekindle it. Other times it's like, it is what it is. And we're moving forward. We're building our life. And that is, what we're doing. So.
Yep. All right. That's it.
That's it.
What are your actions for today's show?
Yeah. First thing I'm going to have you do is just talk to your significant other because they are usually the most impactful person for you. Depending on your relationship, might be your parents. But, you got to be aligned with your significant other on this journey. And if you haven't started yet, now's the best time. If you're in the middle of it and you're dealing with some of this, getting on the same page with your spouse is the first step and will make everything else easier.
Yeah. And my action for you is going to be to find somebody new that can be on your team. So whether that be somebody local to you that you can meet with in person, even if it's just for coffee every once in a while, or somebody online, find somebody that matches your values, that you can have as a sounding board, that you can have just as somebody there to cheer you on, because finding those people for me has been huge.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. And what... I totally just blanked on there. What am I missing?
we're on like the 140th show, and we have the same format every time.
My brain hurts.
So if you guys want some more information about this, we talk about it a lot in the book. Lifestyle Builders, Build Your Business, Quit Your Job, and Live Your Ideal Lifestyle. The main thing is really that transition. There's the transition when you start your business, and then there's ultimately the transition when you leave your job. And this is another point where we've seen this really come up, is when you leave your job. Like, if you start a business, people are like, oh, well, they're doing that on the side, but they still have their core job. A lot of people get really nervous when you start leaving a job, especially if this is a job where you're making decent money or whatever else. So, so much of the book, yes, it talks about business and how to build it, but so much of it is all the supporting stuff around business and how to actually deal with friends and family as you go through that. So if you guys are interested in learning more, you can go to lifestylebuildersbook.com, find out more about the book, get your pre-order in, and get it when it releases.
All right. And if you are looking to leave your job and you want to use entrepreneurship to be able to do that, you can check out our Lifestyle Builders Incubator, because that is where we walk you through how to make your first sales of your product or service that you want to offer and be able to build your business up to that point of being able to leave your job.
Absolutely. So if you guys are looking for more information on that and looking to join us and have us help you build your business so you can leave your job, you can find that at joinlifestylebuilders.com.
All right. It's been another great episode with Tom and Ariana, your hosts and Lifestyle Builders.
And as always, we want you guys to remember that it's your life, your business, your way. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you know another entrepreneur who may benefit from hearing this show, we would so appreciate you being a good friend and sharing it with them. Are you dreaming of a life of financial freedom and more time to spend with your loved ones? Want to build your business to support that dream? You need Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. Become a Lifestyle Builder at joinlifestylebuilders.com. Are you a Lifestyle Builders podcast fan? We'd love to hear from you. Head on over to tomandariana.com/iTunes and leave us a review.